There's a plant that NASA once called one of the most powerful air purifiers on Earth. It absorbs poison. It filters toxins. It transforms contaminated air into something you can actually breathe. But here's the part no one talks about. Even this plant will die if the room never changes. Let me ask you something honest, and I need you to sit with this for a moment before you answer. When was the last time you walked into a room, your home, your workplace, a relationship, a friendship, and felt like something was quietly draining you? Not loudly, not dramatically, not the way it happens in movies where someone screams and walks out and slams the door. No, this is slower. This is the kind of drain that doesn't announce itself. It just settles, like dust on a shelf you stopped noticing months ago. You're tired, but you slept. You're surrounded by people, but you feel alone. You're doing everything right, or at least everything everyone told you is right, but something in your chest feels heavy, compressed, like your lungs forgot how to fully expand. You're not broken. You're not weak. You might just be a living thing, trying to breathe in a room full of poison. The Peacelily, spathiphyllum. It's one of the most beloved houseplants in the world, and not just because it's beautiful, though it is. Elegant, quiet, graceful in a way that doesn't demand your attention, but somehow earns it anyway. No, the Peacelily became legendary because of what it does in silence. In 1989, NASA conducted a now-famous clean air study. They were trying to figure out how to purify the air inside sealed space stations, environments where astronauts were breathing the same recycled air for months. Enclosed, trapped, slowly accumulating invisible toxins. And what they found changed how we think about plants forever. The Peacelily could absorb benzene, formaldehyde, trichloroethylene, ammonia, carbon monoxide, chemicals that are colorless, odorless, the kind you don't see, don't smell, and don't notice until your body starts breaking down. Think about that for a moment. This quiet, unassuming plant, the one people put in hospital rooms and office lobbies and forget to water for weeks, is waging a silent war against invisible poison. Every single day, without recognition, without applause, without anyone even knowing it's happening. It takes in what is toxic. It processes it through its roots, its soil, its leaves, and it releases something clean, something breathable, something that gives life. Sound familiar? Because some of you watching this right now are Peacelilies. You're the person in your family who absorbs everyone's stress, the one who listens, the one who holds space, the one who processes other people's anger, sadness, anxiety, and chaos, and somehow, still tries to put something good back into the room. You're the friend who always checks in but rarely gets checked on. The colleague who keeps the peace while the environment around you grows more and more toxic by the day. The partner who bends and adapts and filters and adjusts until one morning you wake up and realize you haven't bloomed in months, maybe years, and nobody noticed because you were still green, you were still standing, you were still there. But here is the truth that psychology has been confirming for decades, and that this plant has been demonstrating since long before any study was published. You cannot purify a room forever if the source of the poison never stops. Dr. Judith Herman, one of the most important trauma researchers in modern psychology, wrote something that has stayed with me. She said, "The conflict between the will to deny horrible events and the will to proclaim them aloud is the central dialectic of psychological trauma." In simple words, we know something is wrong. We feel in our body. We feel it in our sleep, in our appetite, in that low hum of anxiety that follows us from room to room. But we deny it. We adapt to it. We normalize it. Because the room we're in, whether it's a job, a relationship, a household, a friendship, a digital environment, has been toxic for so long that we've forgotten what clean air even feels like. Psychologists call this concept normalization of dysfunction. You adjust your baseline. What once felt unbearable becomes your Tuesday. What once made you cry becomes background noise. What once crossed your boundary becomes the new boundary. And just like the Peacelily, you keep filtering, keep absorbing, keep processing, until your leaves start to droop, until your roots start to rot, until the very thing that made you beautiful, your ability to bring peace into poisoned spaces, becomes the thing that's slowly killing you. Let's talk about what actually happens inside your body when you stay in a toxic environment too long. Because this isn't poetry anymore. This is biology. When you're surrounded by chronic stress, constant criticism, emotional manipulation, unresolved conflict, environments that feel unsafe, your brain activates what's called the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It's your body's ancient alarm system, and it floods your bloodstream with cortisol. Now, cortisol in short bursts is useful. It's what helps you run from danger, meet a deadline, react in a crisis. But when cortisol stays elevated day after day, week after week, month after month, it begins to erode you from the inside. Your hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation, literally shrinks. Studies published in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology have shown measurable volume reduction in the hippocampi of people exposed to prolonged toxic stress. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of you that plans, that dreams, that makes thoughtful decisions, gets overridden by your amygdala, the fear center. You stop thinking clearly. You become reactive instead of reflective. You stop creating and start surviving. Your immune system weakens. Your sleep fractures. Your digestion suffers. Inflammation rises. The body keeps the score, as Dr. Bessel van der Kolk so perfectly titled his book. And here is where the Peacelily teaches us its most important lesson. Because researchers have found something fascinating. The Peacelily can filter toxins from the air, yes. But there's a threshold. There is a saturation point. If the concentration of toxins is too high for too long, without fresh air ever entering the room, the plant doesn't just slow down. It stops filtering altogether. Its leaves yellow. Its roots decay. Its signature white bloom, that elegant, hopeful flower, simply never comes. Not because the plant failed, but because no living thing, no matter how resilient, was designed to purify poison forever without being replenished. So what does the Peacelily actually need to thrive? It's almost embarrassingly simple. And maybe that's why we resist it, because we've been taught that healing should be complicated, that growth requires suffering, that leaving a toxic room is the same as giving up. The Peacelily needs indirect light, not harsh, blinding exposure, but gentle, consistent warmth. It needs clean water, not too much, not too little, just enough. It needs space for its roots to expand. And most importantly, it needs to be removed from contaminated air, not because it's fragile, but because it's alive. And you're no different. The Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, has been studied extensively at Chiba University and Nippon Medical School. The findings are remarkable. Just 2 hours spent in a natural environment reduces cortisol by 16%. Blood pressure drops. Heart rate variability improves. Natural killer cells, the ones that fight disease and even cancer, increase in activity for up to 30 days after a single session among trees. 30 days, from one afternoon of choosing a different room to stand in. But this isn't just about walking through a forest. This is about understanding a principle that the Peacelily embodies and that modern psychology confirms. Your environment is not a backdrop to your life. It is an active participant in your mental health. The people you spend time with, they are your air quality. The conversations you engage in, they're the chemicals in your atmosphere. The content you consume, the news you absorb, the relationships you maintain out of obligation rather than nourishment. They're the benzene, the formaldehyde, the invisible toxins that you've stopped questioning because they've always been there. So here is your permission. Not from me, I'm just a voice, but from the Peacelily, for nature itself, from the billions of years of biological wisdom encoded in every living cell on this planet. You are allowed to leave the toxic room. You are allowed to say, this air is killing me, even if everyone else in the room seems to be breathing just fine. Maybe they're not. Maybe they've just forgotten what clean air tastes like, too. You are allowed to repot yourself, to choose different soil, to move toward the window, not the harsh, exposing spotlight that burns, but the gentle, steady light that warms. You're allowed to stop filtering for everyone else and start breathing for yourself. Not because you're selfish, but because a Peacelily that dies in a toxic room purifies nothing, helps no one, blooms for nobody, But a peace lily that is placed in the right environment, given clean water, given light, given room to grow, it doesn't just survive, it flowers. I want to leave you with something to carry with you. Not a fact, not a study, just a thought. Every single day, the peace lily does something that most of us have forgotten how to do. It takes in what is toxic, it transforms it, and it gives back something clean. But it can only do this, it can only be this, if someone cares enough to put it in a room where it can breathe. You are that someone. For yourself. No one is coming to repot you. No one is going to move you to the window. No one is going to test the air quality of your life and say, "This room is killing you. Let me carry you somewhere better." That is your work. Your quiet, unglamorous, sacred work. And it doesn't have to happen all at once. The peace lily doesn't bloom overnight. It grows slowly, patiently, one leaf at a time, one root reaching just a little deeper into cleaner soil. One morning where it tilts, almost imperceptibly, toward the light. That's all healing is, a slow tilt toward the light. And if you've been sitting in a dark room for a long time, absorbing everyone else's toxins, bending under the weight of air that was never yours to purify, I need you to hear this. You have done enough. You have filtered enough. Now, it's your turn to bloom. If this felt like something you needed to hear today, you're probably not the only one. Share it with someone who's been sitting in a room that's too dark for too long. And if you'd like to keep exploring the quiet wisdom that plants have been teaching us for millions of years, the lessons hidden in roots and leaves and the spaces between sunlight and soil, consider joining this space. Subscribe to The Plant Mind. We grow here, slowly, together. Until next time, take care of your air.